I spent 7 years building a business from scratch with my ex-girlfriend, but she cheated on me on the eve of our wedding. I was deeply disappointed and chose to break up. 3 years later, my ex-girlfriend sent me a message. "I'm getting married this weekend. Come have a drink at the wedding." At that time, I was on my honeymoon with my wife by the sea. My wife snatched my phone and gave a silent, cold laugh. "I'm sorry, he can't come. Luguan passed away from cancer last month. His body has already been cremated. You were the only girl my brother ever loved in his life. Please allow me to convey his blessings to you. Happy wedding." I found a card among my brother's belongings. "It's the wedding fund you two saved up. Consider it a wedding gift from us." In his dying moments, my brother said that his biggest regret in this life was not marrying you, but he will always love you and wishes you eternal happiness. My wife finished typing and threw the phone back to me. I saw the content and almost dropped my jaw. Yuli glared at me and snorted coldly. "What? Are you feeling bad that I lied to her?" I shook my head and said helplessly, "No, but don't you realize that what you wrote is cursing me? Cancer, cremation, dying unfulfilled in love. Did I have to be so miserable?" Yuli realized it and immediately felt a little guilty. "Should I take it back then?" I put away my phone. "Forget it. It's okay." If it weren't for this message, I would have almost forgotten Liang Ting as a person. After all, our breakup wasn't exactly graceful. Liang Ting and I were in love for 7 years. From college to successful entrepreneurship, I thought we would walk into the halls of marriage. But on a very ordinary day, I caught Liang Ting cheating. I interrogated her in despair. What I got in return were her 2 words, said nonchalantly, "Bored of it." Later I found out. Her affair partner was her white moonlight from her youth, and I was just a tool to distract her within the gaps of her unrequited love. I was disheartened. Without entanglement, I straightforwardly proposed a breakup. Since then, we haven't seen each other. I don't know what she meant by sending this message today. Was it to show off? Or simply to annoy me? But it doesn't matter anymore, whether it was love or hate. 3 years is enough to wash it all away. I was a little distracted. I subconsciously sighed. Yuli, however, thought I was angry about what just happened. She poked my wrist. "Hey, don't be angry. I'll go apologize to her." "What?" I came back to my senses. "Apologize for what?" Yuli glanced at my phone. I understood and smiled. "It's really nothing." Yuli didn't quite believe me. "Then why does your face look bad?" I replied, "It has nothing to do with you. I was thinking about other bad things." Yuli said, "Oh." In front of her, I blacklisted and deleted Liang Ting's contact information. I forgot before. She blinked, her expression still a little uneasy. So I teased her to change the subject. "You were so anxious to snatch my phone just now. You weren't afraid I would actually go to the wedding and get jealous, were you?" "Disiash, who's jealous?" Yuli finally turned back to her lively self. She suddenly stood up. "Lu Guan, you narcissistic jerk." Then she turned around and walked towards the resort house. Yuli walked on the beach, each step sinking deep and shallow. In the sunset, her fair earlobes were exceptionally flushed. I secretly rejoiced. In a good mood, I followed behind. After taking a shower, I came out of the bathroom. Yuli was already lying down with her back to me. I dried my hair and lay down on the other side of the big bed. The distance between us could open a Mishue ice cream tea store. Yuli and I are considered to be married for business interests. But it's not like there's no emotional basis at all. 3 years ago, after breaking up with Liang Ting, I was depressed for a long time. My parents were against me dating Liang Ting in the first place. They said Liang Ting didn't have much genuine affection for me, but I didn't believe them. I insisted on accompanying Liang Ting in her business venture for 7 years, giving all my true feelings. In the end, I lost miserably. To divert my attention, my parents introduced me to the daughter of an old friend. At the time, the two families had business dealings. I couldn't refuse, so I agreed to meet. Yuli is a very cool girl. The first time we met, she made it clear that she was being forced by her parents and wasn't interested in me. I expressed my understanding. Then I told her about me and Liang Ting. Yuli expressed deep sympathy for me. As a result, Our interactions were surprisingly relaxed and pleasant. After a few encounters, I discovered that Yuli had a lot of whimsical ideas. Following her around was very interesting. I gradually forgot about my entanglement with Liang Ting. So when my parents suggested that Yuli and I get married, I agreed without much hesitation. The wedding took place as scheduled. Actually, I've never understood Yuli's feelings. Was she forced by her parents to marry me? Or was it voluntary? It wasn't until today, when she snatched my phone and angrily sent a message to Liang Ting, that I was a little more certain. She should be voluntary. I heard the rustling sound of fabric rubbing together. Yuli turned to face me. I looked into her eyes in the dim light. What's wrong? Yuli paused and then called my name. Lu Guan, we're married. Yeah. So no matter what, you're not allowed to cheat on me, or I'll make sure you regret it. I was stunned for a moment. Before I could say anything, Yuli turned her back to me again. I watched her curl up into a ball, knowing that she was still bothered by the message Liang Ting sent today. My heart stirred slightly. I leaned over and hugged her from behind. I know, I won't. We've hardly ever had such intimate gestures. Yuli's body stiffened for a moment, but she quickly relaxed. She didn't say anything, but her breathing became much smoother. That night, we slept in each other's arms. The next day, before dawn, my phone was vibrating like crazy. I woke up startled, glanced at Yuli still asleep, and tiptoed out of the room. Hello. I answered the phone impatiently. Lin Ji, hearing my voice, sighed in relief on the other end. Lao Lu, I knew you weren't dead. I didn't understand what he meant. Lin Ji, without waiting for me to ask, began to rattle on. Basically, Liang Ting had gone crazy. Not only had she trashed the wedding venue that was half prepared, but she was also yelling that I was dead. She was searching everywhere for my ashes to bury. You didn't see her. She was heartbroken. It even made me think something really happened to you. So I quickly called to ask. Lin Ji sighed in wonder. Then he asked me what exactly was going on. I told him what happened yesterday, and I screenshotted Yuli's reply and sent it to him. Lin Ji exclaimed, awesome, after reading it. This is freaking character assassination. No wonder Liang Ting went crazy. If this happened to me, I'd regret it for life. I remained non-committal. I didn't understand why Liang Ting was reacting so strongly. She abandoned me so ruthlessly back then. Now she's acting all sentimental after hearing of my death. I vaguely remember the look in Liang Ting's eyes when she said the words, I'm bored, cold, disgusted, as if I were some dirty thing stuck to her. Actually, after the breakup, I thought about it carefully. Liang Ting's attitude towards me was always lukewarm. Belated birthday wishes, forgotten dating anniversaries. Every time I got sick, I was already better before she remembered to ask about my health. Things like that, so many things. But I didn't think much of it at the time, because she was like that with everyone else. I thought she just had a naturally cold personality, until I saw her interacting with her white moonlight. Her eyebrows and eyes curved, the tenderness and affection in her eyes almost overflowing. I finally understood. Liang Ting wasn't just cold. It was just that she didn't care about me at all. At that moment, I truly let go. Lao Lu, what do you think? Think about what? Lin Ji sounded a little anxious. About Liang Ting, you still have her contact information. You wouldn't still have unrequited feelings, right? I understood what he meant. You're overthinking it. Not deleting Liang Ting's contact information was an accident. I'm currently using one of several alt accounts. My main account got jammed because of too many messages. The contacts on my alt account are a mixed bag. I was too lazy to sort it out. I didn't expect Liang Ting to be in there. But it wasn't surprising either. I had 800 alt accounts back then. To avoid missing any news from Liang Ting, I added her contact information to every single one. Lin Ji breathed a sigh of relief after learning the reason. Before hanging up, he hesitated. If Liang Ting asks us about you, no need to hide anything. Whether I'm dead or not, a simple check will reveal it. Besides, there's nothing to hide. I haven't done anything shady. The honeymoon ended quickly. Yuli and I traveled to many places. Our feelings for each other quickly warmed up. Yuli had to go on a business trip to France on short notice, so we separated at the airport. I'll come back to find you as soon as I'm done. She quickly kissed me on the cheek and then immediately turned and jogged away, boarding the plane accompanied by her assistant. I touched my cheek and grinned foolishly for a while. Then I set off back to China. After getting off the plane, I left through the VIP Dongdal VIP channel. The driver who should have been waiting outside was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there was a row of black cars. Liang Ting stood not far away, watching me. 3 years had passed, and her appearance hadn't changed much, but her temperament was more composed and restrained. However, at this moment, her eyes were bloodshot, and she was staring at me intently, as if she wanted to flay me alive. But there was also a joy of rediscovering something lost in her eyes. It was very complicated. I only glanced at her and then looked away. I contacted the driver while walking past her. The driver's phone couldn't be reached. Just as I was getting annoyed, Liang Ting suddenly grabbed my sleeve. "Lu Guan, you've achieved your goal." I stopped and turned to look at her with a frown. I didn't understand what she meant by those abrupt words. I didn't say anything and tried to pull back my sleeve. But Liang Ting held on even tighter. Her eyes were red, as if she understood my confusion, and the expression on her face was somewhat distorted. "Those messages you sent, weren't they just to get revenge on me? You succeeded. I've been unable to sleep these days because of the news of your death. I even personally ruined my own wedding. Are you satisfied now?" The more I listened, the more I frowned. But I didn't speak until she finished. "You're overthinking it. I didn't want to take revenge on you. Those messages were an accident." Liang Ting obviously didn't believe it. What kind of accident can edit so much text? "It has nothing to do with you." I didn't want to explain it to her and turned to leave. But Liang Ting suddenly became ruthless and had people forcibly drag me into the car. I was also angry and broke free from their restraint. "Liang Ting, what are you doing?" Liang Ting looked at me with a cold smile. "Isn't this exactly what you wanted? You ruined my wedding. Isn't it just to get back together with me?" I was simply stunned by her self-love. How did I not realize she was so narcissistic before? After a moment, I took a deep breath as I looked at her. "Liang Ting, you're really overthinking it. First, you contacted me first. Second, I've already explained that sending those messages was an accident. Third, I'm married now and have no interest in you anymore." After listening to me, Liang Ting's expression was blank for a moment. She said in disbelief, "You're married?" Before I could speak, she suddenly grabbed my shoulders, her manicured nails digging into my flesh, causing unbearable pain. "Impossible. You're lying to me." I removed her hand, my face calm. "What reason do I have to lie to you? Because you want to ruin my wedding with Chun-Li." Chun-Li was Liang Ting's white moonlight. The two were childhood neighbors. Chun-Li was a year older than her. Liang Ting had a crush on him from a very young age. After graduating from high school, Liang Ting decided to confess, but found that Chun-Li already had a girlfriend and was forced to give up. But she still followed Chun-Li to the same university. After that, she watched Chun-Li and his girlfriend be affectionate, feeling pain in her heart, but there was nothing she could do. That's when I appeared. You could say I fell in love with Liang Ting at first sight. She was particularly beautiful and had good grades. Only her personality was a bit aloof. This made her feel lonely in school, often acting alone. I had accidentally seen her feeding stray cats at school and even talking to them to herself, which was very different from her usual style. A bit cute. The moment this thought popped up, I knew I was done for. I didn't hesitate and started pursuing Liang Ting directly. At first, Liang Ting didn't accept it. It was as if she had an impenetrable layer of glass around her, not giving me the slightest chance to get close. Until one time, it was raining heavily. Liang Ting didn't bring an umbrella and was trapped in the library. When I went to find her, a clap of thunder sounded in the sky. Liang Ting screamed in fright and curled up into a ball, attracting the attention of the surrounding students. It was the first time I had seen her so panicked and embarrassed. Without thinking, I rushed up and hugged her, then took her to a place where no one was around to calm down. After Liang Ting calmed down, she told me that she was very afraid of thunder. After that, our relationship became inexplicably closer. Liang Ting even asked me out on her own initiative. I was overjoyed and didn't think about it carefully until we broke up later. I knew the reason. Liang Ting's mother couldn't stand her father's infidelity and committed suicide on a rainy night, which she happened to witness. Chun-Li rushed in and covered her eyes, and that scene in the library made her see Chun-Li's shadow in me. This was the reason why we could be together. I was Chun-Li's substitute. The car sped down the road. I was momentarily surprised by Liang Ting's words, but I quickly recovered. I looked at her calmly. I never had any intention of disrupting your wedding. If those messages bothered you, I apologize. However, in the face of my apology, Liang Ting's expression became even worse. Lu Guan, do you really not mind me getting married? I don't mind. She looked into my eyes, and there was no pretense or falsehood in them. I was telling the truth. Liang Ting's expression was somewhat gloomy. She was silent for a moment. What if I regret it? I frowned slightly. She continued, what if I told you that I actually don't want to marry Chun-Li, that I mistook my gratitude for him as love, that I now regret breaking up with you, would you? She didn't finish the rest of her sentence, but I understood what she meant. My expression remained unchanged, neither disgusted nor joyful. No, my tone was firm. Liang Ting's face changed, looking heartbroken. She asked persistently, are you really married? I nodded. She asked again, did you and she marry willingly? I nodded again. Liang Ting lowered her head, clenching her hands. I couldn't see her expression, nor did I want to. Liang Ting and I were long over. Whatever she thought, it had nothing to do with me. I glanced at the time and pointed to the intersection ahead. I'll get off here. Liang Ting didn't speak, but when we reached the intersection, she told the driver to stop. I hailed a taxi on the side of the road. As I left, I could still feel Liang Ting's gaze on my back. Yuli came back a week later. As soon as she entered the door, she gave me a hug. We kissed naturally. There was a joy of reunion after a short separation. A moment later, Yuli became a little shy, belatedly. She coughed lightly. Guess who I just saw? Who? Liang Ting. My movements paused, and I turned to look at Yuli. Yuli's eyes were playful. Downstairs, shouldn't you explain this to me? I smiled and led her to the sofa. I appreciate Yuli's personality. She speaks directly if she has a problem and doesn't hide anything, thus avoiding many misunderstandings and suspicions. I told her about what happened at the airport that day. Yuli touched her chin. I think Liang Ting still has feelings for you. I raised an eyebrow and didn't speak. Why don't you react? Yuli asked. What reaction should I have? Yuli couldn't say. She lay down on my legs. Forget it, as long as she doesn't bother us. I hugged her and hummed in agreement. Yuli hadn't slept well on the plane. After a quick wash, she went to the bedroom to sleep. I waited until she was asleep before walking to the living room. Looking down from the floor-to-ceiling window, the numerous vehicles looked like little ants, completely indistinguishable. I took out my phone and dialed a number. The call connected quickly, but no one answered. My voice was a little cold. Liang Ting, I know you're listening. I don't know what you're trying to do, but don't disturb my life, and don't appear in front of my wife and cause her to misunderstand. This is a request and a warning. There was still no response from the other end of the phone, but I could hear Liang Ting's slightly rapid breathing. I didn't say anything more and hung up the phone. I glanced in the direction of the bedroom, my eyes softening slightly. My attitude towards Liang Ting had been indifferent before, simply because she wasn't worth my emotional fluctuations, whether it was her absurd words or actions. I only regarded it as a show, but I won't allow her to disturb my life, especially Yuli's. The next day, I went to the company. I didn't see Liang Ting's car downstairs. I felt a little relieved. In the past 2 years, my parents wanted to enjoy their retirement and gradually handed over the family business to me. With the wedding and honeymoon, I hadn't been to the company for almost a month. Fortunately, the highly paid secretary was very capable and summarized all the work matters, so that the version that reached me was already the most simplified. Boss, there's a meeting this morning to discuss cooperation. The secretary handed me the documents. I read it once and got up to go to the conference room. I was a little late, and the other party was already seated. I'm sorry. My tone faltered slightly. I didn't expect Liang Ting to be the cooperative party we were negotiating with. Liang Ting's company mainly promotes cutting-edge technology, and my project this time is a daily chemical brand. The relationship between the two is not very strong, but I have a general idea of why Liang Ting would interfere. I sat down at the table without showing any expression. After shaking hands, the two parties began to talk. There was no unusual expression on Liang Ting's face. She just took the initiative to offer a concession when finalizing the deal. I accepted without hesitation. Whatever her purpose was, I only knew that it's stupid not to make money. After the meeting, I returned to my office. Not long after, the secretary knocked on the door and came in. "Boss, General Manager Liang wants to see you." I agreed. When Liang Ting came in, I was chatting with Yuli. She said she would personally cook dinner tonight and told me to remember to go home on time. I replied with a cat going home emoticon. "Lu Guan." Liang Ting called my name. I put away my phone and motioned for her to sit on the sofa. Liang Ting looked at me, her expression a bit complicated. I took the initiative to break the silence. "Thank you for the concession you made just now. You don't need to thank me. I owed it to you back then." Back then, when we broke up, I sold my shares to Liang Ting at a very low price in order to quickly disengage. She jumped to become the company's largest shareholder. Looking at the market value back then, her concession now is not even a tenth of what I lost back then. This is also one of the reasons why I can accept her concession without feeling guilty. Seeing that I didn't speak, Liang Ting said again, "I'm sorry for what I did to you back then. Do you still hate me now?" I was slightly silent. To be honest, I hated Liang Ting to death back then. But now, thinking about the past, I don't feel the slightest ripple in my heart. It was just an unpleasant interlude in my life. I don't need to keep dwelling on it and make myself uncomfortable. It's not hate. I just don't want to see you again either. The moment the words fell, the color drained from Liang Ting's face. Her lips moved slightly. "I just want to make it up to you." I had never heard this kind of humble tone from Liang Ting's mouth. When I was with her, I was the passive one. To put it bluntly, I was quite the simp back then. Liang Ting wanted to eat the very popular duang duang cake near the campus. I would get up at 6 in the morning to queue up, just so she could eat it when she had her first class. But she only took 2 bites and was tired of it, so I picked up the rest. Later, when I entered the entrepreneurial stage, because I was dating Liang Ting, my parents kicked me out of the house. All my cards were taken back. Friends were also ordered not to help me. Liang Ting and I lived in the basement. We ate noodles every day, 1 egg each. I had never suffered that kind of hardship in my life. But not only did I not complain at the time, but I was happy about it. After the breakup, I told Lin Ji about this when I was drunk. He laughed at me for being such a love brain, but I never regretted being so deeply in love at the time. In my opinion, loving someone means being unreserved. It's just a pity that I loved the wrong person back then. I looked at Liang Ting. I don't know what stimulated her. Suddenly, she didn't want the white moonlight anymore and wanted to eat this old flame. But I didn't care. My tone was faint. "Then please don't appear in front of me again. Let's write off all the grievances between us." I saw Liang Ting again half a month later at a birthday banquet. These kinds of events usually require guests to bring a partner. Yuli happened to be free, so she accompanied me. We had just arrived and exchanged a few pleasantries when I caught sight of Liang Ting. She had a male escort, but it wasn't Chun-Li. He was quite young and looked a bit like a minor celebrity. I felt a little confused. Had Liang Ting and Chun-Li really broken up? Yuli noticed too and discreetly pinched my waist. "Liang Ting's date isn't that Chun-Li guy, is it?" I looked at her curiously. "You know Chun-Li?" Yuli cleared her throat, looking a little embarrassed. "I did a little research. Before the wedding." Yuli widened her eyes, trying to appear more imposing. "Even though you told me about you and Liang Ting, you used to like her so much. Since we were getting married, of course, I had to be completely sure to avoid any misunderstandings." Her voice trailed off, turning into a mumble. She seemed a little embarrassed about having investigated someone behind their back. I didn't mind. In fact, I was in a good mood. Yuli doing this proved she had feelings for me before we got married. It turned out our feelings were mutual, after all. I took her hand and kissed the back of it. It's okay, I'm quite happy. My action startled Yuli. She looked around, but made no move to pull her hand away. Mr. and Mrs. Liu are truly loving. Hearing the voice, I turned around. It was the young celebrity from Liang Ting's side. He smiled brightly and offered us a toast. I heard you two are newlyweds. Congratulations and best wishes. After he finished, not only was there no echoing congratulations, but everyone's expressions became strange. Liang Ting stood not far away, her expression unreadable. Many people in this circle knew that Liang Ting and I were exes. Even the reason for our breakup wasn't a secret. And then there was the recent incident where Liang Ting suddenly went crazy and trashed her own wedding. Anyone could find out with a little digging. So, lately, Liang Ting and I had become everyone's after-dinner gossip. Things like whether Chun-Li and I were her true or false loves, that Liang Ting still had feelings for me, that I was Liang Ting's true love, that Liang Ting was staging a desperate attempt to win me back, and even bets on whether I would abandon Yu Li and rekindle things with Liang Ting. But everyone only gossiped privately. No one dared to bring it up to my face. I didn't know if this young celebrity was genuinely clueless or just stupid. As Liang Ting's guest, he openly congratulated Yu Li and me on our marriage. Wasn't that a blatant slap in Liang Ting's face? The expressions of those present varied, all wanting to see my reaction. I didn't speak. Liang Ting didn't attempt to smooth things over either. The young celebrity finally sensed the awkward atmosphere and looked flustered. Then Yuli reached out and took the glass. She smiled gently. Thank you. Then she took a small sip. A director friend of mine is preparing an IP drama. I think there's a supporting role that would suit you. You could audition. The young celebrity's face lit up. Thank you, Mrs. Liu. Yuli raised her glass again, facing everyone with a graceful smile. Today isn't Lu Guan's and my event. We can't take up the birthday girl's time. We'll host everyone another day, and no one can leave until they've said something auspicious. This graceful and playful intervention instantly broke the tense atmosphere. Everyone around laughed and agreed. Only Liang Ting's face became very gloomy. The young celebrity approached her and said something excitedly, but was met with a cold glare, leaving him bewildered. Yuli watched their retreating figures and snorted. If you want to know if our relationship is good, just ask. Using someone else as a pawn to test us, such underhanded tactics. She then pinched my waist. It's all your rotten peach blossoms. I winced in pain, feeling wronged. What does it have to do with me? Yuli ignored me and turned to chat with some acquaintances. Before leaving, she glared at me. Don't talk to me until the banquet is over. Reflect on yourself. From today on, call me Lu Rongguan. I made the rounds, greeting everyone. The alcohol was starting to get to me, so I found a quiet balcony to rest. Suddenly, an argument erupted in the next room. My cigarette paused midair. I recognized one of the voices as Liang Ting's. The next second, the door behind me opened. Liang Ting stormed out, her high heels clicking angrily against the floor. A man followed close behind. I glanced at him and recognized Chun-Li. I was surprised by Chun-Li's appearance. I had met him in college. Back then, he was a dashing young man, clean-cut and refreshing, occasionally wearing glasses, gentle and easygoing, the kind that attracted girls. The Chun-Li before me was now somewhat overweight, wearing black-rimmed glasses. Perhaps due to the rush, his clothes were ill-fitting. His hair was unkempt and messy. Standing next to the glamorous Liang Ting, he looked, to put it bluntly, like a toad next to a swan. They seemed to have had a terrible fight, as a clear slap mark was visible on Chun-Li's face. Chun-Li cursed. Liang Ting was about to retort, but she caught sight of me on the balcony. Her words caught in her throat, and her departing steps faltered. Chun-Li seized the opportunity. His face contorted. Liang Ting, you stop right there. You were the one who seduced me, ruining things between me and my girlfriend. You promised to marry me, and now you're backing out? And you think that measly compensation is enough? I'm telling you, this wedding is happening, whether you like it or not. Otherwise, you'll see what happens. With every word he uttered, Liang Ting's face paled until it was ashen. She looked at me, her expression panicked, as if wanting to explain. I ignored her, turning to leave this scene. Whatever the reason for Liang Ting's infidelity, it had nothing to do with me. As I walked past them, Chunli caught sight of my face and froze. The next second, he released Liang Ting and lunged at me, grabbing my collar. "Lu Guan, I finally caught you. It's all your fault." Damn it. I knew there was a reason why that bitch Liang Ting has been acting so strange lately, so half-hearted about the wedding preparations, and so distracted. It's because she's thinking about you. You faked your death. Liang Ting went crazy, wrecked the wedding, and made me a laughingstock among my family, friends, and colleagues. Were you two having an affair behind my back? You must have resented me because Liang Ting broke up with you for me. I'll tell you what, the reason Liang Ting was with you is because you did the same thing I did. She's afraid of thunder, and you just happened to be there. She was just seeing me in you. Did you really think she loved you? Chunli yelled at me, his face stung, his eyes bloodshot. His spittle sprayed my face, disgusting me. But before I could react, he was slapped across the face. Liang Ting, hand raised, glared at him angrily. "Shut up. You're not even worthy of being compared to Lu Guan." He struggled with me, helped me build my company, while all you did was ask me for money. Like a parasite. I've had enough of you. Not marrying you has nothing to do with Lu Guan. It's because you disgust me. Chunli sneered. I'm scum? Then what does it make you? Crawling into my bed. Desperate? Now I disgust you? Weren't you calling me Chunli Gidge so sweetly back then? Liang Ting, struck where it hurt, turned deathly pale. I watched their dogfight, wanting to laugh. How much had Liang Ting loved Chunli? Every year for his birthday, she would prepare gifts weeks in advance. Every time he was sick, she'd fuss over him like a mother hen. Every time he argued with his girlfriend, she'd endure the heartache, comfort the girl, and even become good friends with her. And Chunli? He had a girlfriend, yet he accepted another girl's devotion without a second thought, calling them just like siblings. Poor me and that girl, we were both blind and stupid, unable to see the transgression and the deception between them. But now, I looked at the expression in Liang Ting's eyes as she looked at Chunli. It was identical to the look she gave me when we broke up. Disgust, annoyance, coldness. It turns out that a white moonlight, once held in one's hand, can also become worthless mosquito blood. I'm glad I broke up with Liang Ting back then. She's nothing but a selfish and cold-hearted person. Liang Ting noticed my gaze, panic rising in her eyes. She reached for my arm. Lu Guan, let me explain, it's not what you think. I immediately dodged her touch, my expression of disgust making her blanch. No need to explain. I don't want to hear it. I'm not thinking anything. This is between you two. It has nothing to do with me. I've already said, we're done. Chunli laughed beside us. Liang Ting, do you see? You're throwing yourself at him, and he doesn't even want you. You're just cheap. You like whoever doesn't want you. You were like that with me back then, and you're the same with Lu Guan now. Are you sick? He roared with laughter like a madman. I lost interest in this farce, adjusting my sleeve and turning to leave. Liang Ting grabbed my hand, her eyes red-rimmed. She pleaded, Lu Guan, I really know I was wrong. I've been thinking about you for the past 3 years. I just couldn't bring myself to look for you. Give me another chance. Don't leave me. I beg you. I can't live without you. Saying this, she leaned in to kiss me. I quickly pushed her away. Liang Ting, are you crazy? Having been entangled repeatedly, my patience had reached its limit. I disgustedly wiped the places she had touched, blurting out harsh words. If you can't live, then go die. Liang Ting froze, her expression vacant. Tears streamed down her beautiful face, a picture of pitiful beauty. But I didn't want to look at her. Lu Guan, are you really so heartless? I replied coldly, you deserve this. For a long time after that, I didn't see Liang Ting again. Yuli was diagnosed with pregnancy. Both sets of parents were overjoyed, practically treating her like a queen. My parents even canceled their travel plans and bought an apartment in our complex. Every day, they couldn't resist visiting Yuli, fussing over her constantly. Sigh, my waist has grown 2 centimeters thicker, Yuli sighed, turning left and right in front of the mirror, with mom and dad constantly feeding me. I'm worried I'll become a pig before I even give birth. Seeing her distress, I put my arm around her shoulders from behind. Tomorrow I'll find a nutritionist. That way, our parents won't worry about your health, and you'll have a reason to refuse their constant feeding. How about that? Yuli's eyes lit up, and she nodded vigorously. I just breathed a sigh of relief when Yuli pointed to a row of clothes. My old clothes don't fit anymore. I need to buy new ones. Understanding her meaning, I smiled wryly and handed my card to the sales assistant, who happily went to check out. When we left the mall, it was already late. We had been shopping all day. My feet felt like they belonged to someone else. In contrast, Yuli was still full of energy. Comparing the two of us, I felt like I was the pregnant one who needed to be taken care of. I carried the overflowing shopping bags, followed by two sales assistants carrying even more. You could have had the clothes delivered. Why bother coming out and tiring yourself out? Yuli hummed as she sat in the passenger seat. That wouldn't be any fun. The joy is in the shopping and choosing. I showed her my red, chafed hands. Yeah, you enjoy the shopping, and I enjoy carrying the bags. Yuli raised an eyebrow. You're not happy about it? I quickly corrected my attitude. Of course not. It's my honor. Yuli was finally satisfied. I fastened her seatbelt and started the car. The sky was dark and gloomy, feeling like a storm was brewing. It's about to rain. Let's hurry home. I glanced out the window and suddenly froze. I wasn't sure if my eyes were playing tricks on me, but I thought I saw Liang Ting. Seeing me staring blankly, Yuli asked, "What's wrong?" I looked away. Nothing. Yuli was quite tired after a day of shopping. Although she didn't say anything, she collapsed onto the bed as soon as we got home. I helped her take off her coat and softly said, "Rest for a while. I'll call you when dinner's ready." Yuli murmured in agreement and quickly fell asleep. I closed the door and walked to the living room. The sky outside was overcast, as if it were about to crush the entire city. I went to the window and looked down through the glass. Although I couldn't see anything, I had a feeling Liang Ting was down there. She must have seen Yuli and me shopping today. A sudden chill ran down my spine. Had Liang Ting been following me these past few days? I wasn't afraid for myself, but I was afraid she would do something to Yuli. Although in my memory, Liang Ting wasn't that extreme. Yuli was pregnant, and she and the baby were my most precious treasures. I had to be careful. After thinking it over, I dialed Liang Ting's number. As expected, she answered quickly. I went straight to the point. "Liang Ting, I saw you at the mall today." There was a long silence on the other end, no denial. I knew I was right. Anger surged within me, but I forced it down. "Liang Ting, don't do this again. No matter what you do, you can't change the current situation. And stay away from Yuli. I care about her very much. If anything happens to her, I don't know what I'll do. Do you understand?" There was no response. I was about to hang up when Liang Ting's hoarse voice came through. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean any harm. I just wanted to see you." I lowered my voice. "But I don't want to see you. I have a new life. I'm happy now. The best apology you can give me is to leave me alone." Liang Ting's breath hitched. I heard her crying, her voice choked with sobs. She tried to say something more, but a flash of lightning suddenly streaked across the sky, illuminating the night. Immediately afterward, a huge clap of thunder cracked the sky. I even felt the French windows shake. A scream of terror came from the other end of the phone. Liang Ting's voice trembled. Luguan, Luguan, the thunder is so loud. I'm scared. I'm really scared. Can you come to me? Help me." I had a fleeting vision of the library 10 years ago. Liang Ting huddled alone in a corner. Back then, I ran to her without hesitation. But now, my expression was indifferent. It has nothing to do with me. I turned to look at the bedroom door. My wife is also afraid of thunder. I have to go be with her. Liang Ting fell silent. I hung up the phone and walked into the bedroom. Yuli hadn't been woken by the noise, but subconsciously she had pulled the quilt tighter around herself. I went over, lifted the quilt, and slipped in beside her. Yuli hugged me, her brow relaxing. My phone vibrated. I saw a text message pop up on the screen. It was from an unknown number. There were only 5 words. "I'm sorry, goodbye." I heard about Liang Ting again 3 years later. I was reading a story to my daughter. She had inherited Yu Li's features, with big, round eyes that were incredibly cute when she smiled. She reached for the book in my hand. When I wouldn't give it to her, she pretended to cry. I had no choice but to coax her with a toy, and soon we were playing together, her giggles filling the room. Yuli came in from outside, looking hesitant. I noticed something was wrong with her expression and went over with our daughter in my arms to ask what was the matter. Yuli looked conflicted. Liang Ting passed away. Ah, I didn't quite react to the name at first. After a moment, I asked, how? Liang Ting had moved abroad 3 years ago. Yuli sighed. Cancer. I heard she underwent treatment for a long time, but she had no will to live, and the doctors couldn't do anything. Cancer. I remembered the message Yuli had received. I hadn't expected it to be a premonition. Except it wasn't me who got cancer. No wonder Yuli looked like that. But he will always love you and wishes you eternal happiness. Yuli nodded. I know, but I feel a little uneasy. I shouldn't have said those things. She patted her face to cheer herself up and turned to go to the kitchen. She said she had been experimenting with new recipes and wanted to make something for us to try. I continued to play with my daughter. Then my computer beeped, a new email. I stared at the sender's name, stunned. It was from Liang Ting. After a moment of hesitation, I deleted the email. Since there was no longer any connection between us, I didn't want to leave even a trace of memory.